Hi, how you doing? Well, a lot has changed in the last 2 weeks, so I thought it was probably time to do another little tour around the yard just to see the progress of how everything's coming along. I'm actually, aside from the lack of moisture that we have had, basically no rain, maybe like a half a millimeter here or there, that's about it. I'm quite happy with the way everything is coming along. So I thought we'd just go on a little tour around the yard and see the changes that have happened so far. My name is Sharon. I garden on a large yard in a small town in east central Saskatchewan, Zone 3. Welcome to my Sask Garden. We'll just start off here on the deck. I got the deck pots planted, a few more than I had anticipated, and these are the geraniums that I had wintered bare root or just in paper bags with no soil or anything over the winter, and then I brought them back to life, and I'm quite happy with that. They came back to life very nicely. They're really full. In here there's two, there might be a third small one, and this is a calibrachoa, and I don't have the name anywhere nearby, but this and the Dusty Miller, they all go very nicely together. They have the same kind of water requirements, and then just individually I've planted a few more, which will probably come into the basement potted and then winter under lights. So I tried to take that into consideration as I was planting as well. I'll probably winter a lot more in a paper bag under the stairs for the winter, because that did seem to work out very well. And then I'll keep a few mother plants as well for starting some cuttings. So we'll just go on off the deck and down into this sunny area. The smoke has cleared for us. It's supposed to get smoky again. We had 3 days of very smoky weather. I actually took advantage of the sun being obscured by all the smoke to get a few more things planted out. Basically worked the same as cloud cover, so it wasn't as hot and the sun wasn't as intense. And but it has now cleared. I think it's supposed to be pushing in more. We're supposed to get another big wave of it a little later today. Anyways, down in this area you can see that the iris have started blooming. Everything has come up and is growing well. These are the short-bearded iris, and I have a few clumps of those into this area. This is the tree peony, which is growing very nicely. Nice fat buds on here. It's taller than it normally gets. It's funny how from year to year things do change. And this is another tree peony over on this side. It's going to be a little later and the buds are a little smaller. This isn't for lack of moisture because I have been watering quite consistently in the area. Peonies, yeah, peonies are coming up well. So are the daylilies. I have quite a few daylilies in here. I have some autumn joy sedum in here and a lot of Asiatic lilies, which again, I'll remind you, go out and check your lilies. Make sure that they are not being bothered by the lily beetle. I have been checking mine frequently, and so far so good. I'm certainly hoping that, I am spared again this year. That is just devastating. A couple weeks ago or so, I cut back the golden elder, and I just wanted to show you the progress on that. So here's the golden elder that I cut back. If you recall the video, I did a rejuvenation pruning right back to basically nothing. There was the odd little bud, but it's coming back very nicely. It sent out several shoots. There's several more coming from the bottom that I can see. lots on this side, and there are 3 or 4 stems over here that I see no growth on, so that leads me to believe that those were dead. They're not pushing out any growth, but there's lots all around it. So I'll leave that for now, and at some point I may try and prune the rest of it off. But this is, I'm very happy with how this has come along. I think it's going to be quite nice. This is a big planting here of monkshood or aconitum. Looks a lot like delphinium, and it's actually bothered by the delphinium worm as well. And so that's something else you could go out and check for if you have delphiniums, to check for, right now they're going to look like a bunch of clustered little black bugs right in the growth point of plants. And if you see those, you should pick them off and dispose of them in your garbage, not just throw them on the ground beside the plant. And you can also, if your plant is really bothered, there's a green worm that's involved. Also on the columbine, they may attack the columbine. You can spray with BTK, which is like a systemic. It's a natural occurring bacteria that the caterpillars eat, and then that kills them. So spray in the evening when there's no bees about. I don't think it bothers bees, but even still, spray in the evening, and then you should have some luck with trying to control. You could even do it as a preventative measure. Even if you don't have any, you could still spray that BTK. Comes in a small bottle of concentrate that you mix with water, and a little goes a long way. So it's, I don't know, like probably $15 for this little bottle, and you can get that pretty much anywhere, like Canadian Tire and Home Depot and places like that. And it's good to have in your arsenal of things, because it's good for caterpillars, for trying to kill off anything that is wormy or caterpillary. So just moving along, the last time we had the last video, I think there were no leaves, or very few leaves, on all of the shrubs and trees back here. And as you can see, they're all leafed out and looking very nice. This is a high bush cranberry. I quite like these shrubs. In another video I talked at the front of the house, I talked about how there was extras down at the bottom that I could dig up and move, and I'm going to do that for the north part of the yard, and I'm just going to get into that in a second, the problems that I'm having over there. These are the Martagon lilies, a bunch of hosta in front that I've sort of plunked in there to grow, and I will be taking out every other one at some point. Sometimes you have to wait for everything in your yard to grow, to come up and start growing before you can actually start moving perennials or planting new ones. That's the point I'm at now. I'm just gonna wait. I'll probably be able to start this week planting out the new stuff, as well as digging up and moving some things. But the Martagon lilies are doing very nicely. They were not, I mentioned in a previous video that the buds can be damaged by frost, and we had a couple of nights where I wasn't sure if that was going to happen, but they were not damaged by frost, so it's going to be a very nice bloom in here. The Martagon lilies enjoy this kind of dappled shade, part sun, that the tree provides, and so they do quite nice in here. And in this area, there's various types of things. A lot of this is seeded out stuff that I have not even planted, except for the hosta in this area as well, excuse me, which are not yet completely grown and completely unfurled. They are still rather young coming up, but they're coming, and I suspect in another week they should be full. This area is all columbine, and I've planted out a bunch of fern in the background, which I'm happy to see have come back. They're looking good. I would like I would like the fern to take control of that area back there. I think that would look nice. In the meantime, I do have all of these columbine. I have a love-hate relationship with columbine. I find them to be easy to grow, but at the same time, they are bothered by different kinds of pests and bugs, and there's a sawfly of some sort. Leaf miner can bother them, and those green worms. But this year, they are looking good, and I think I should get a nice bloom out of this within the next week or two. They are all dark purple, a very dark purple, almost black when they open. I honestly don't know where they came from. I feel like they seeded out in here and just continued to seed out, because I don't recall ever planting that dark purple, dark black type of columbine. So I may have had a different kind, a different color, and when they seeded out, the seedlings didn't come true and they reverted to a parent plant. I suspect that's what has happened. And continuing on, I have a nice patch of ornamental onion going on in here. These are mostly all seedlings that have come up and bloomed. The shrubs have been cut way back, and I talked about all the pruning that I did along the fence, but I now see that some of the trees that I left, this one in particular, it's not leafing out. I don't see any black knot disease on it. I don't know what the problem is with it, but it's not leafing out. And so I, for a number of years now, I have regretted planting the chokecherry, which I initially, 25 years ago or so, my dad and I planted chokecherry around the perimeter of the yard. At that time, there was no house in front of us, and we were sort of open to the street. It's actually the street that comes in off the highway, so it's a busy street, and we were open to that. We had nothing for trees at the time. I wanted something fast growing. The chokecherry definitely did that, and for the first 18 to 20 years, they were awesome. They really were, except for all of the suckering and seedlings that went on. But I was able to control those. I grew the chokecherry as standards, as one trunk trees, and they did the job that I wanted. They provided the screen that I wanted to the street. And then eventually, actually it wasn't much later that the house behind us was built, the shrubbery went in, and now there is a lot more between us and the street, which is nice. This chokecherry trees started developing black knot disease. We had to cut all of them down, and I thought that they would come back either from the suckers or from seedlings. Some have, but some are still not looking very healthy. So I think I'm going to start slowly cutting many of them out, and I'm going to use the high bush cranberry instead as a screen. I have never had trouble with the high bush cranberry. It takes very well to pruning. It doesn't have disease like the chokecherry does. It has a nice bloom. The birds like it. There's lots of good things about the high bush cranberry, and it actually will grow quite tall as well. That was another concern of mine at the time that I planted the chokecherry, was that I wanted them high enough actually to hide the power lines and whatever all those wires are at the back. I didn't want to see them. Anyways, that probably is the plan for back here, is to add in a few more of the high bush cranberry, which I will be digging up from the front of the yard. So this is the area where I have used to be full sun. The willow trees that are in the middle of the yard cast a lot of shade here. They also suck up a lot of the moisture, and so I am in the process of changing a lot of this. And back here I've started hostas that are even less advanced than the ones over on the east side of the yard. They are just poking up now. That has something to do with the mulch that is on the bed, as well as the shade that is provided, so the soil warms a little later. I've also started some ladies mantle. That should grow well here. I've got perennial geranium, Virginia, and thalictrum. These all should do quite well in this area. I used to have a lot of daylily in here. I have 2, 3, 4, 5 left still. And those I left last year because it seemed like they were still getting enough sunshine that they had a pretty good bloom. But probably, you know, some of them will need to come out. Oh, there's 6. Some of them will need to come out this year. And I'd like the hosta to take over here. I also have all those astilbe that I started. There's 6, I think, that I'd like to plant out in here as well. And in this corner as well, this is actually a transplanted hosta. This is, I think, guacamole, and I had to dig one up last year. So I split it up into 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 plants, as well as the ladies mantle. I think, you know, when that grows up, that's going to look quite nice. And I'll try and keep the rest of these trees at bay. So there's just something not right with the chokecherry with some of them. I thought this section was all going to be great, but they're not. They started out looking pretty good, but now the leaves are very poor. There's a problem there. If I have to get rid of all the chokecherry, I won't be disappointed, and I would suggest you don't plant chokecherry because they're nice at first, but they are a problem eventually. And then just going on into this area, I have a lot of the bearded iris growing in this area. They seem to like this. Actually, they like some of this part shade. I had a bunch growing under an apple tree for quite a while, and they did very well under the shade of that apple tree. I think they must like the dryness that tree roots provide. They seem to enjoy a little bit of shade. I think it's probably mostly the dryness. And then I have a number of peonies growing in here. So we'll just go on through into the shade area. This is Solomon seal, and I just planted a few sprouts here just a couple years ago. I'm very happy with how thick it's become in there. I'd like it to take over in this area, which looks like it's well on its way. The goat's beard have come back quite nicely. This one, I thought 2 or 3 years ago, I thought it was a goner, which is why I planted another plant over here to kind of take over if this one was indeed going to die. But this one has come back nicely, and this one is a seedling. This one is a seedling of this one. They do grow up very nice though, and shield the rain barrels, so I do like them there. And this is my Queen of the Prairie that I talked about a couple weeks ago, and I was worried about it. I planted it 2 years ago. Last year it was not very nice. It had kind of chlorotic leaves, and it was slow to come up, and it looked really bad. But this year it's looking great. I was gonna move it, you know, for sure, but it has just come up looking so wonderful that I'm thinking perhaps I will leave it. It should get quite tall. It would hide this, which I like that idea, and provide height. You know, maybe it would get to 5 feet high, so it would really fill this wall, which I would like that. I would like that look. And then just a few hosta in front. So on this side, again, the hosta are just coming up. But actually it's a good thing that they happen so slow, because if they were faster, some of the hosta would cover all of these primrose blossoms. I think this is Primula denticulata. I started it from seed many, many years ago, and I just let it seed out whatever it wants to do here. So never entirely certain just how, it is perennial, it's not an annual, but I'm never entirely certain how much bloom I'm going to get or what is going to be blooming, which are still growing, you know, and developing into mature plants. As well, I have a lot of Martagon lily. I sowed some seed here. I just tossed some seed, and that's how I guru gardening. That's how I like to garden. It just, you know, what will be will be. Anyways, then when these hosta grow and they are, you know, nice and full, they cover up the rest of that primula, which basically die down to almost nothing with the heat of the summer, and so they hide all that dying foliage and you know, when they don't look very nice or they don't look like anything at all, that hosta provides good cover for them. I planted a globe flower last year. Happy to see it coming back. I think it's liking this spot, as well as this is the wee hosta. It didn't go into winter looking the healthiest, and I was concerned about it. It does look like it's coming very nicely though, and again, wee is not wee as in little. It should get a fair size. Wee is W-H-E-E, and it's got these kind of curled leaves that I really like. Anyways, we'll see how that comes along. This is a named cultivar of a Virginia. I don't remember the name though. I used to have a nice patch of it over here too, and that patch seems to have died out. This patch is quite nice though. Probably could transplant some. This is the pink a blue lungwort, and that has come very nice. I'm really happy with this. And then here is another lungwort that I planted, I think 3 years ago. It's not coming back as nicely as I would like it to. So I think that I may move it. I don't recall the name of it. I think it's got raspberry in its name. I think that I probably will move it into this section because this looks like there should be something there. Perhaps it died out. The other thing that I'm not happy with at all is this Brunnera. This is Jack of Diamonds, and you know, it needs a full shade site. At least that was my experience last year, and this is just far too small. The leaves are tiny. It's just not doing well, so I'm going to have to move that somewhere as well and find a better place for it. I bought Queen of Hearts this year that is still waiting to be planted, and I'm going to have to find a nice spot for that one as well. This obviously is not the spot. And so moving on in this area, wind tunnel area, this wind tunnel is one of the reasons why my bleeding heart breaks every year. And I think that's why it's jammed itself up against the house for as much protection as it can get. But yeah, it tends to get very windy through here. Anyways, this is my original big patch of Solomon seal. It's blooming right now, and there are the blossoms. I just cut a bunch of these stems, put them in a vase for cut flowers just for the house, and they look so beautiful. They're so dainty, those little bell type flowers. So they grow by rhizome. They're very easy to dig up and divide. They're almost right at the surface. This is a variegated form that I got maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's coming along nicely. I think this might be its 3rd year. And then more hosta down below that will fill in eventually. It's the hosta are taking their time this year in some of the places for sure. So I think we'll move on to the front of the yard. So we'll just start on the alley side of the front yard. These are the honeysuckle that I cut back. Did a hard prune on them last year. They've come back very nicely, and they're blooming heavy this year. I think this one is Arnold Red, but you know, have to check on that to make sure I don't have that wrong. Some little worm there. They they bloom beautifully, and the reason I cut it back is because they tend to get bare legs. They get lots of growth on the top and nothing at the bottom, and every once in a while you just have to come in and cut that right down. So I have two of them, both doing quite nicely. This is the Pocahontas lilac, and I think it blooms, well, maybe not this year because everything is blooming. The lilacs are all blooming so heavy. This one is very, very scented though. And here's the other side of that Pocahontas lilac. So you can see that it's kind of, you know, I'm sure that was from me pruning out dead stuff, and it probably comes from the largeness of this high bush cranberry. This is the one that's got several more plants growing around it that I can dig up. They transplant quite easily. Another Pocahontas lilac that I trimmed back quite hard last year, so there are a few blooms. I'm going to have to trim it again this year. I keep wanting to get it just a little bit more manageable size. And this is the Mohican viburnum just coming into bloom. It has very nice blooms. It's a nice shrub. It's tough as anything. The leaves stay on it well into winter. As a matter of fact, some years I don't think the dead leaves actually come off until spring, until the new leaves start poking out. It will also grow probably, I'm sure it would grow 10 feet easy if you let it, 10 to 12 feet. The hens and chicks and the sedum all doing well. The sedum acre, this stuff here that I allow to just kind of do its thing. Most of the sedum I allow to do its thing along here. And that is just going to come into bloom. Nice, beautiful yellow when it does come into bloom. I've still not transplanted the daylilies, which is my intention, but all in good time. The new look Dusty Miller that I planted in here is doing well. It was kind of wilty for a couple of days, and then, you know, we changed the drip. I had soaker hose in here, and that little 1/4-inch soaker hose, our water is too hard for it, and they don't last much more than a year or two. So we changed to a different kind of drip tubing, and you know, I'm gonna do, I think probably the next video that comes out is going to be about the different kinds of drip watering systems that we have tried and what I think is working best at this point. Anyways, I planted the black pearl ornamental pepper in here because I didn't know what else to do with them. They should really like this environment. It's kind of dryish. It's hot, full sun all day long. And that, as well as some zinnias have been planted in here. These should grow, I'm hoping, you know, about this big. These will grow probably, I'm going to say 18 inches. At least they have in the past for me. And the zinnias as well should grow. I'm thinking at, you know, between 1 foot and 1.5 feet. So all of that should cover the dying foliage, and of course there is the ornamental oriental lilies in the background. I talked about this mugo pine before as well, and the fingers have come out a lot more. I like that look. I don't cut anything off until they start to sort of spread out more. This is on a mugo pine, or probably any pine. This is how the new growth comes out, and if you were to leave it, it would just continue to make more stems. This is a dwarf mugo pine, but I still have to prune off these stems, these growth points, if I want to keep it this size, and I don't really want it to get much bigger. Also, it's growing a whole bunch of what looks like pine cones. This year there's lots of those. And I think this is what sends off the pollen. They're going to be full of pollen in a little while. Not just yet. It's been very dusty from the street, and you can actually see it in the shrubs. And I think I'm going to come in with a strong hose and give everything a good spray just to get all the dust off. You know, if you have dry and dusty plant material, that's an invitation for spider mites. So that's my reason for coming in here with a strong hose and getting all that, or trying to wash off as much of that dust as I can. And of course here I've planted out all the annuals just this past week. There's Bacopa and Nemesia in the top portion of these, and the two colors of geraniums, as well as Silver Dust Dusty Miller in the bottom section. That's these three plants, or three pots. And up here at the front is also the geraniums. The two colors of geraniums, Silver Dust and New Look, Dusty Miller, and Dichondra, that hopefully will eventually spill out the front. You can see that today is a really windy day. These plants, I find, are very good, very strong against the wind. I do appreciate that kind of resilience in a plant, because here the wind just never stops. I had to go buy a new pot because I still had some geraniums left over. And so, as well as that wire vine this is a wire vine, I had no idea what to do with that. And so I think that turned out pretty nice. Co-op had them on sale. If you didn't know, I don't know if the sale was over, but they were $35 and they're very good quality pots. In here is Kufia. That's this taller plant in the center, and it's surrounded by the blanket petunias. Silver Surprise Blanket Petunia, I think it's called. And I potted up two of them, of these low containers. More geraniums with more Calibrachoa. They go well together. They have the same kind of water needs. Just in this section, you know, this used to be my grandmother's house. This is the foundation of her house that was filled in. This was the chimney chase, this concrete piece right here. So a pot goes on top of that. This was her kitchen. Her kitchen stove was right here. And I remember it well. I did many a dish, wash many a dish just over there. Anyways, in here I've got Shamrock Burgundy Oxalis growing in there with the dark leaf and that bright yellow flower. I think once it fills in, it should be really pretty. This is a perennial baby's breath. It gets just to be like a large white pillow. It's beautiful. Some ajuga just over here. And yeah, it's looking good. The fir tree was one of the little seedling that I planted there a number of years ago. It has grown very nice. I'm very happy with that. So we'll just move on into the rock garden area. I think that you probably saw this nice patch of iris that are just over here. Kind of a bicolor iris along with the dark purple. They were a beautiful show. They're starting, some of the flowers are starting to fade now, and there are not too many buds left that need to open. So this is going to be about as good as it gets for the rest of the season, but I do love that combination. And just over here in the rock garden area, nice patch of tall bearded iris, a couple of nice patches of tall bearded iris, loving their life here. They should, you know, everything's really advanced this year, I think. I'm beginning to wonder just what is going to be in bloom at what time, because it's, you know, early June 1st today, and all of this stuff is already fading. So more of the short bearded iris. I love this one. This kind of coppery sort of color. I'm quite taken with that one. Virginia is out of bloom, so now these will form seed heads. These will form seeds, and so I'm going to come in and cut all of those off. I don't want seeds to form this year. Everything else has come back very nicely, is continuing to grow nicely, with the exception of the Sunseeker's Rainbow Echinacea. That did not come back this year. When I've left it, and when I go to pull on it, oh yeah, now it's, you know, it doesn't survive the tug test. A tug test is when you pull and it's in there solid, and that usually means there's still some hope for that plant to grow, but this one just comes right out. I mean, the roots don't look dead, but there is no growth on that anywhere. So I fear that one did not live, and I don't recall. Yeah, zone 3 to 9. I don't know why that didn't come back. There's another echinacea just over here. I don't remember which one it is, but that one is looking fabulous. I talked about the back and black sedum not long ago that I had trouble with for 2 years in a row, and last year I moved it here, and it is now growing nicely in this area. So I may have finally found a spot for it to grow. I didn't have a lot of hope for it when I planted it there because it was all but dead. This is Boom Chocolata perennial geranium. Happy with that, very happy. Even if it doesn't bloom, I mean, I love the foliage. I love the, you know, it's got a boulder leaf and that dark greenish to purple kind of foliage. I quite like that a lot. These iris were gorgeous. They were just chock-a-block full of purple blossoms. You can see how many have now died off. These will also set seed, and these will also rebloom, or at least they did last year. They rebloomed 3 times. So I'm going to come in here, do some maintenance this week, cut off all the dead blossoms so they don't set seed, and hopefully that spurs on another good rebloom for them. Some little dianthus in the rock garden are blooming. This is Louisa. Here and here I have growing. This one is multiplying nicely as well. So happy that this one has a happy spot. Just over here is creeping phlox, which is just coming out of bloom. That was very nice. Coming into bloom though is this Sedum kamchaticum, which is a very, very tough perennial. If you have a really difficult spot in full sun and dryness and you just, nothing works, and you want something creeping, this stuff. It can get a little invasive, but you know, any of the extras that either seed out, or if a piece falls, it will start to grow, but they are very easy to pull up and get rid of, or transplant somewhere else. This is also if you have something that is raised above the snow level, which could be this, quite honestly. This is, you know, I don't know, it's raised up probably about maybe 2 feet from where I'm standing, and that's a tricky kind of spot to overwinter something, but the Sedum kamchaticum takes that with no trouble. I think if you had a raised planter, even one with a bottom, like just a raised planter on legs, that would survive if you wanted something perennial, and it would trail over as well. So that's a pretty good perennial. I think people don't use it because it can get a little aggressive, but it's you know, with a little bit of work, just cutting it back when you should and pulling up any of the little seedlings. I'm trying to see if there's any here. I can't see any. Oh, here's one right here. This has decided to seed out there. I kind of like it there, so I'm going to leave it. This one isn't, this is a weed. This one is another one that has decided to go there, but you know, you can just pull it up. And it's not like some other terrible weeds that if you leave a tiny little piece of root, it's going to regrow. This isn't the same. it won't do that. More ajuga. This one is blooming very nicely. This is the marble ajuga. In full sun, it seems to perhaps lose some of its marbliness, the pink. Either that or it needs the cooler weather for that to happen. But in the meantime, it's got a very nice bloom going on. And here, this time, is just going to come into bloom, and it looks like it's just going to be a carpet of pink. Looks good. It's going to look nice next to this sempervivum, this hens and chicks. Probably one of the most favorite perennials that I have. This is the Color Spire series of salvia. This one is called Back to the Fuchsia. This plant is a huge performer, so it's coming into bloom now. It's robust. It's beautiful. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this plant except go out and buy one. Or any of the Color Spire series, but I really do like this Back to the Fuchsia. I bought 2 more this year, Pink Dawn and maybe Violet Riot. And I do have another one just growing down the path here a little. And I just absolutely love them. And they seem to have no trouble with hardiness. I think you need a good, well-drained position for them, but they're excellent, excellent perennial. Highly recommend. I don't know what this is. It came up here last year and I thought maybe it was a seedling of the Rudbeckia, but now I don't think it's that. I'm beginning to think it's a weed and that I'm, letting a weed grow on here. I thought I'd wait for it to bloom. I don't see anything happening in that way. I don't see any kind of bloom. Oh, maybe there is something coming. Maybe I'll give it just a little bit more time because I just honestly don't know what this is. In behind here is the onyx and opal penstemon that grew so beautifully for me last year. It is coming, and there's new growth back here as well. Part of it did die off at the back, but where it did die off, there is new little shoots coming that, I think it's going to be fine. I don't think this perennial is really, or whatever this is, I don't think it's really interfering with its growth because this root ball is far enough away, but I don't know what's going on underneath the soil, to be honest. So that's the onyx and opal that I highly recommended last year as well. It was this tall and just gorgeous. Not sure if it's going to get that tall this year, but we'll see. So just moving on to the west side of the garage, the perennial bed here. Everything's coming along very nicely, but I also planted a whole bunch of other iris in here. I think it benefits from the overhang. I think that it likes the dryness. And I don't think those tall bearded iris really like to be kept wet at all. So a variety of perennials that I have either added. The daylilies are quite old. The Asiatic lilies are very old. I'm going to say they're 20 some years old. Some things I still need to add in. I've recently started putting some phlox in here. Over on this side, this is the haskap. They had a beautiful bloom this year and the bees were really busy in there. They bloom early, which is a big benefit to the bees, I think. And so there was lots of bee activity going on in here. Now I think it's time to give it a great big soak to help the berries along. They are quite full with berries. I should have a nice harvest. I had a really nice harvest last year out of these 3 bushes. I had considered moving these, but they really are growing so well here that I'm hesitant to do that. I think instead I'll plant a 4th one just over here. And this is kind of just a mishmash. This is where things go when I don't know where else to put them, honestly. And so I think I'm going to plant a 4th one in there just for one more because I do like the berries. And then after I give it a great big soak, I'll probably set up the netting to keep the birds away, because the birds will eat it all up. Into the veg garden. Is it recording? Is my test, is that working?
Cut.
So just here in the vegetable garden, I'm really very happy with the potatoes. They are looking awesome. They are so green and so healthy looking. I am keeping them covered just in the event that a potato beetle should show up. They haven't, but I did notice the odd flea beetle on here the other day. I think there's enough foliage that it probably won't hurt those few flea beetles. It's not like there's lots and lots. There was just the odd one that I saw. So I'm not going to be too concerned about them. Very happy with the potatoes, so super happy. I'm hoping that I didn't plant them too close together. Over here we have the garlic and the onion. The onion are coming along. They're okay. I think they'll be all right. I don't know. To me, it seems like they should be a little bit more advanced, but I have to keep telling myself it is only June 1st. They definitely are putting on new growth, which is what you need to see. So I think they finally rooted, and I think they should be all right. None have died. The garlic is looking fabulous, looking very good. I'm very happy with it. I think, maybe it's me, I don't know. I think I'm seeing a difference in this past week. It's just been about a week, or maybe a little less, that I treated these 2 rows with the H-Start probiotic soil enhancer, and I did not treat these 2, and I think I'm seeing a difference in these 2 rows. They look bigger, thicker leaves. They look good. And this area, I have, first of all, I did plant out, as I said, I took advantage of the smoky days obscuring the sun. I planted out these cucamelon. I have 3 little plants. We still have to put the trellising up here. Maybe that'll go up today. And then I have lettuce, chicory. The dill has finally started to come. I seeded the dill just in this row here, and I see it is coming up now. So that took 10 days. And yeah, I think this is the chicory, this is butterhead lettuce, and then there's some romaine lettuce in here. Everything is doing good, and I planted out the cucumber as well. I have 2 quarantine and 2 summer dance. They're doing okay. The other thing I took advantage of with the obscured skies and a little bit cooler weather was I went ahead and I planted out the tomatoes a couple nights ago. Now I've had row cover on this since then, but I think what I'm going to do today for these plants is I'm going to put on the tomato cages, and I have some like shrink wrap, and I'm going to wrap the bottom parts of the tomato cages to protect them from the wind. And I'll probably wrap and leave a couple of sections with a little bit of breeze goes through, but I think that's what I'm going to do to provide them with a little bit of wind protection, because I put this here to keep it above. This is Esterina, and she's a tall gal, and taller than my hoops can accommodate. And so I put this over top just to kind of keep the row cover from flapping around on it. And but I think it's time for tomato cages, quite honestly. I had a video the other day where maybe the last video, where I planted out 3 honeydew melon and 3 squash. They are doing well. Again, I have the row cover on them. They provide a little bit of shade as well as wind protection. So I took the cover off just for the video, I'll be putting it back on shortly. I'll leave that cover on probably until they start blooming. I just kind of push up the sides a bit sometimes just to get a little bit of airflow, but for the most part I leave those covers on. Here is my cabbage and broccoli. I've set up drip watering in here. I was just reusing some old emitters that I had set up in another area that didn't work very well. This is my new net, and I'm very happy with this net. Overall, it's stronger than the other net that I have. A lot stronger. I think it's going to have a lot more life to it, and perhaps not create holes as easily as the other net does. But they're coming along well. I can't seal it off enough at the bottom for the odd flea beetle that gets in there. So I have been using a diatomaceous earth. It's called Last Crawl. And I have been putting it on lightly on the plants, as well as kind of sprinkling it around the base of the plants, and that's helping a lot as well. But I've certainly noticed a lot of, the white butterflies are out, the cabbage moths, or white butterflies, whatever you choose to call them. So it definitely does protect it from that. This netting came in a roll or a piece that's 13 feet wide and 33 feet long. Very good size. If you have a larger patch in your garden that you need to cover, you need to get it now. This is available from Amazon. You can get it within probably 5 days, and I can put that link. I'm only putting that as a courtesy. I don't have any affiliation. I don't have an Amazon store, nothing like that. Just simply letting you know that that's a really good net. And see what else I see is the stink bugs are out again this year. I don't know if they attack cabbages, but that's the second time I've noticed a stink bug on that net. Here we have my row of beans, all up, all looking good. I had this row cover on for quite some time until they started to germinate, and now they are left to whatever the weather is going to throw at them. And here we have the butternut squash. They still have a little bit of wilt on the bigger leaves, just a wee bit. I have been keeping the row cover on top of them. It provides some wind protection. All the new growth looks good though. I don't think there's any real transplant shock going on. If you had transplant shock, that whole plant would be one big wilted mess. So I think they're going to be okay, and I will put that row cover back on for the wind protection. That wind, as I said many times before, it comes from every direction all at once, it seems. So today is a west wind, apparently, or a northwest wind. We should be well protected here with this hedge, but it just, it comes around, or I don't know what it does, but anyways, it's not necessarily stopping as much wind as it needs to. Otherwise, what's going on back here is lots of lamium is in bloom, and along here, all along the hedge, I'd like it to actually go the entire way down the hedge. So when I trim the edges, I take all those trimmings and just throw them over on the other side, and if there's any seedlings or cuttings that want to take hold, they can as it goes down. I like that look. It's easy, and I still have some lilies that grow up through that. So on this side I have more Martagon lilies because I've come in here and thrown seed. When I say that, it does take about 5 years or so for a Martagon lily to bloom from seed. It is a bit of a test of patience there. And then I have some hosta in here as well, but yeah, I quite like that. that look, and you know, that it goes underneath the trees and stuff. I think that's nice. The final thing that I want to show you is, you know, because it's not going to last much longer, is the lilac hedge that my dad planted about 40 years ago. So this is the lilac hedge that my dad planted about 40 years ago. They built the house, Mom and Dad built the house just on the other side of this hedge sometime in the 80s. And then this was my grandmother's, actually this was my Uncle Harry's, and then the foundation was my grandmother's, and actually where our house is, or where our garage is, used to be my great-grandparents. So there's lots of history here, but this was planted by my dad, and I know lilacs are having an amazing year this year, pretty much everywhere, but this is one of the nicest blooms that I've seen off this hedge in quite some time. And you know, it really makes me think of Dad and how happy he'd be to see all these blooms going on. Thanks very much for coming along on this tour today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up, tell your friends, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Thanks again. See you.